the hero of the hour, coming back to bask in the glory. Okay. So hopefully I can put some dunce caps on you guys. Alright, here we go. Patzer's Playground. Part 1. Okay. So we're going from the white side. Knight f3. Okay, black plays f6. Not the first choice I would pick, but it's not the worst move in history. Okay, d4, d5, c4, c6. Take. Queen takes. Okay, so you want to develop with tempo. So knight c3, solid and good. Queen retreats. Again, I wouldn't go to d7 necessarily. Probably a5 or d8 are both better. So notice that on d7 it blocks in his bishop and potentially takes away a square from his knight. Okay, so e4, taking the center. Okay, so yeah, here bishop b4 is possible. I mean, it's fine. Meanwhile, I can just continue e3. Queen a4 check.
Check.
Then he can play knight c6. And he can initiate some sort of thing where he can like take on b4 if he wants, but I mean, it's not necessary really. You can just play bishop d2 here, guarantee the 2 bishops. I mean, okay, but queen d7. So e4. Okay, e5. Okay. So what should white do here? Yep, our guy's white. So yeah, I mean, this one's kind of simple. We should just win a pawn, right? Because winning a pawn is good. Yeah, no problem with winning a pawn. Get into an endgame? Sure. Winning a pawn and getting into an endgame. What could be better? I can't think of a single thing on earth that could be better. Okay, so taking the pawn is obviously good. What white actually plays is actually fine. So white plays this move, bishop to b5. So now, what is black forced to play here? Black only has one move. What is black forced to play here? Yeah, so black has to play a move like c6. Okay, which black does. Yeah, knight c6 is bad. So why is knight c6 bad? I mean, there's a couple of reasons. I mean, first of all, I could probably just take here. Right? And win a pawn again. Because again, this knight would be pinned at the end of that. But also d5 is probably pretty strong. Then after a6, something like pawn takes knight, take,
check,
take, and then if you want to take the bishop, I take here, and now I'm threatening this guy. Something like that. And this is probably pretty good for white. I'll take this guy. Okay. But, okay, black did play c6. Okay, so now the question is, what should we do with this bishop? There are a couple of options. We can go back this way, we can go back this, whoops. Go back this way, go back this way, go back this way, go back this way. So, what's the best square? Okay, so this is kind of important. The bishop wants to have as much scope as possible. So bishop c4 would be the right square. The reason is, notice that this diagonal is weakened because black played these moves f6 and e5. So notice the e6 square in particular is weak. So after a move like pawn takes pawn, white would recapture with the knight. And notice that this e6 square again is particularly juicy. So notice that bishop a4 doesn't actually do anything. I mean, yes, we're pinning this pawn, but that's not really going to help black. And now black can, take here and play bishop c5 and, well, not bishop c5 actually, but bishop e7. And maybe the worst is over. Maybe even like knight h6 to f7, just try to kind of hold on. Okay, but anyway, so he played bishop a4. which is okay, but c4 would have been better. Yeah, okay, yeah, exactly. So Zwish actually made a really important point. Notice that the natural squares for black's knights are both taken by pawns. So in general, you don't want to play your pawns to c6 and f6 unless you have a good reason to. And notice that black's going to have a hard time getting his knights out without putting him on the rim. Okay, so I'm really glad Zwish pointed that out because that's actually a really important point. Okay, so he played bishop a4, take, knight takes. Okay, now bishop c5. Okay, so I mentioned this a second ago. I kind of gave it away. So white's move and win. I gave it away before. Even I forgot about it for a second. But white's move and win. Okay, so yeah, what you should ask yourself, this one's actually not easy to see, but you should ask yourself, whenever your opponent moves a piece to an unprotected square, is there some way I can attack it while attacking something else? And you guys all see it, of course, because I kind of gave it away a little bit, but yeah, queens do move sideways. Again, not easy to see, because even I stopped myself for a second and forgot about it, but yeah, queen h5 is the move. So the idea is you're forking the king and the bishop. Yeah. So whenever this rank has been opened up and this f pawn has been pushed, look out for these types of tactics. So yeah. But again, that's not super easy to see. So okay, white of course didn't see it and played bishop e3, which is probably the second best move. I mean, winning a piece was always good, but okay, he's still better. Okay, knight e7, and again, same move, same result, wins a piece. Knight e7 didn't actually stop it. But if you're not going to see it once, you're not going to see it twice. So he castled. Again, a reasonable move. Okay. Queen d6. So he's trying to get his bishop out. But notice he shouldn't have put his queen on d7 to begin with, because now he just wasted a tempo. So black's already wasted 2 or 3 tempi in this game. He can't really afford to waste another one, but okay. So bishop e3, take, bishop takes, bishop e6.
Check.
Okay, now he does the check. Okay. So it seems that black has actually kind of saved himself a bit here. You know, he's not down any material. He's getting ready to finish his development. So what should white do here? Bishop takes e6 and f6? Huh? Okay, so the right move is something, you want to do something to kind of prevent black from completing his development. And so a natural move that black has here is to castle. So we can actually play a move bishop c5 here. And the idea is now castling is illegal. And we also gain a tempo on the queen. Notice again, the queen defends c5. So now when the queen moves, we can, if the queen moves, I mean, the only square the queen has to defend this bishop is what? d7, right? That's the only square. Now we can play rook fd1 or rook ad1, either one. And now the queen only has one square again to defend this bishop, which is c8. And now, I mean, we've gained 2 tempi. We can do all sorts of crazy stuff if we want. I mean, simply just doubling on the d file seems good. And then we can get our bishop to d6, and this king is really just stuck for the rest of the game. So, yeah. So, you guys saw queens moving sideways to win a piece, but not queens moving sideways to play bishop c5. But yeah. So you want to gain tempi while simultaneously stopping development. So bishop c5 kind of fits the bill perfectly, because we're attacking his queen and preventing castling. Because you cannot castle through check. Okay. Yeah. But, I mean, to be honest, if black gets out of this position only down the exchange, it's probably okay for him. But, yeah, I mean, rook d1 is also a good move. But bishop c5 is a little bit more to the point. That's all. Okay. So, he played rook f d1. Castle. And now what should white do? Yeah. So, any bishop move would be awesome here. Any bishop move would be awesome because we're discovering an attack on the queen. So white actually played bishop takes f6. Which makes sense. Because now the queen has no square it can defend this bishop on. So notice queen e7 and queen e5 are both now out of the picture. And so no matter where the queen moves, e6 will hang. So queen f4.
Check.
Okay, so now white won a piece with this bishop takes f6 discovery. Okay. So what should white play here? Well, what's hanging? What's hanging? This guy. When this guy moves, what'll be hanging? This guy. So you want to make a move that covers both threats. So simply bishop d4. There's nothing wrong with a move like bishop g5, but I mean you don't want to hang f2 if you don't have to.
Check.
I mean this is still fine. There's no mates or anything, but I mean why not defend the pawn? Then your bishop can come back from d4 and play bishop b3 and just be up a piece. Everything's defended. You can start generating an attack with bishop f5, starting to take the knight, etc., etc. So yeah, why not just defend the piece? I mean we're up a piece, right? Why not just stay up a piece?
Check.
Okay, so white captured instead. I mean, just fine. He's still up 2 pawns, but why not just stay up a piece? So king takes. And unfortunately, maybe white thought that rook d7 is possible here. Yeah, exactly what Eno just said, but unfortunately the knight covers it. Rook d7 would be pretty strong if there was no knight there, but there is. Okay, so now f3, defending f2, fine. I mean, white's still up 2 pawns. Still winning. Okay, knight h4. Doesn't really do much. You just want to be careful. You want to be careful here that you don't play a move like, say, g3. So what would happen on g3, for example? It looks enticing, but what would happen here? Yeah, so why is g3 bad? Well, yeah, it's kind of a free pawn. You can actually take with the queen, I believe. Oh no, I guess you can't. I guess you can take with the knight. Yeah, I thought you could take with the queen, but I forgot he could play queen h4. Okay, you can take with the knight, though.
Check.
Yeah, and then on king somewhere, you just move your queen. And don't forget, now you're attacking this guy. So if he moves this guy, then you move this guy. Yeah. There's no mate, but I mean, you just win a pawn. So like if rook f1, you can just take on e6 now. And then you've won a pawn. Okay. So
Check.
white side trade queens makes sense. He's up 2 pawns. No reason not to. Okay, take. Took with the bishop. King h8. Rook d3. Okay, good. Getting ready to double on the file. He's up 2 pawns. Should be a fairly easy conversion. If this knight ever moves, he can play rook d7. So c5. Doubles on the file, good. Knight c6, rook d7, good. Okay, rook d8. So now what can white do here? Yeah, white can trade down. What else could white do? Yeah, so white can actually win a 3rd pawn here by taking on this. Don't forget, this rook is defended. So rook takes,
Check.
and just up 3 pawns. Pretty simple. And if rook d8, then you can play rook d7 and stop all shenanigans. Okay, but he played knight b5, which is fine. Take, rook takes. Okay, knight e5. So a little bit of a fork. So white takes on b7, good. Take, rook f4. Okay, but we're up 3 pawns here. So it doesn't matter if we lose a couple because we're still going to win a couple back. Okay, so g3. This doesn't quite work because he can like play knight f3 and then move the rook, but okay. So black took on g4 and pinned the pawn. So what should white do here? Yeah, a move like knight d6 is good to defend this pawn. But also king f2 is also very strong. Just to unpin this pawn and force the knight to move, and then you can play knight d6. So yeah, knight d6 or king f2, even knight c3, all reasonable. Okay, but white plays this move rook b8. And now unfortunately, he gives up this great position of his rook on the b7 square. So now he lets the king out, and also he's no longer attacking his a7 pawn. So this was kind of like a major error that allows black some counterplay. So okay, king g7. Now he plays king f2, but it would be much better if this rook were still here and this king were still here. Right? Because the king would be trapped on the back rank, and the rook would be strong attacking this pawn on a7. Yeah, so he basically just made the king more active for no good reason. So don't always play checks just because you see them. He actually improved black's position significantly. Yeah. It's an important point, though, because I can't tell you how many times I see people do stuff like this, where they check the king because they think, I don't know, it gives them a sense of power that they're forcing their opponent to make an only move or something, but it really just helped black there. Okay, so knight g6, defending the knight.
Check.
Okay, so now notice he moves his rook back to b7. He realized that this is the square it should be on right now. Okay, king h6. Okay, so now what should white do? Okay, so we actually want to try to hold on to this pawn. Because this pawn is pretty much a goner anyway. So playing knight d6 is a good move, because what else are we threatening? So we're defending the pawn, but what else are we actually threatening here? Yeah, so we're threatening knight f5 check and rook takes h7, exactly. So it's kind of hard for black to meet that threat. Okay, but white took on a7, took on e4, rook c7 trying to win c5, rook c4. Okay, now this position is actually a little bit trickier. White's still up 2 pawns, but his knight's kind of out of play on a7. Black is able to defend his target. Okay, so what does white need to play here? No, this was not a blitz game. Okay, well this is tricky now. This is tricky, but what can't white allow? What can't white allow? Yeah, white can't allow this move because it's a check, and basically all the pawns would be hanging then on the second rank. So how do we avoid this move? It seems difficult to avoid. Is there a way we can avoid it, perhaps? This is tricky. Yeah, so we have to make it so it's not a check. So right, king e3. And now the point is, what happens if black plays rook c2? So if black plays rook c2, what do we play here? Yeah, very good. So we can play b4 here. Now notice this rook is pinned. So now after rook takes a4, b takes c5, rook takes h2, this pawn is too fast. This pawn is too fast. Okay, but king e3 is pretty much a necessary move, or else this rook c2 coming with check is disastrous. Okay, so he played b3. Unfortunately, he's losing at least another pawn now.
Check.
So check. And now he's losing h2. Okay, so what should white play here? This is getting more closer and closer to a draw now. But what should white play here? Okay, h4 is actually a mistake, guys. h4 is a big mistake. If h4, rook a3, and this is lost. You can't save this pawn. If rook b7, just c4. And now black's actually maybe better. I mean, it's probably still a draw, but probably only black can win now. And of course, you can't take on c5 because the knight hangs. So what should you do? Yeah, very good. So you have to play knight b5 here. So the point is, you're stopping rook a3. And okay, if he plays rook b2, then at least we can take on c5. Because now rook takes b3, okay,
Check.
we're just up a pawn. I mean, this is still probably a draw, but okay, at least we're up a pawn now. Okay. But white, whoops, sorry. Okay, so let me go back to the
Check.
position. Okay, so he played h4, which is incorrect. Because after rook a3, king f2, take, take. Okay, now this is pretty much drawn. Yeah. This is pretty much drawn. Okay, so they played some moves.
Check.
Okay, he should play king g2 probably, stay closer to the pawns.
Check.
Okay, he can move back. Okay, so white, to retain any winning chances whatsoever, had to keep the rooks on, but okay, now this is a dead draw. Except now all of a sudden it's not. So obviously black just has to keep his king rooted to this pawn. Eventually it'll be 1 versus 0 and then basically trade the knight for the last pawn and then it's an easy draw. But after this move, what should white play? Yep, so now black put himself into a situation where this move forks the king and the pawn.
Check.
Of course, white didn't play it. Okay, now he plays h5.
Check. Check. Check.
And now, whoops. Okay, so this was still a dead draw. All he has to do is just play this back and forth, and it's a dead draw. But he played this move,
Check.
and now all of a sudden, black loses. Because the king and pawn ending is lost. The king is too far away, and this pawn just promotes. So I'll show you the end. Take, take, g4, g5, g6, and the pawn wins.
Check.
Okay, and white won. So, amazing how white was just completely dominating, played the endgame so badly that it was a draw, and then black somehow decided, well, I'll be a nice guy and give it to you anyway. Yeah. Alright. So that was this one. Let's take a look at the next one and see if our Patzers play any better. Okay. Alright. So this is the second one. This is again going to be from white's point of view. Okay, so we start with knight f3, d4, e3. It's a little bit weird to kind of block in this bishop right away. Maybe c4 first, but this is fine, I guess. Okay, bishop d3. So this move is also a little weird because it's not clear that your bishop wants to be on d3 necessarily. So again, the moves like c4 makes sense because then if he captures, you can just recapture with the bishop and not have to waste a tempo. But after bishop d3, for example, if black plays like g6 and bishop g7, this bishop on d3 looks a bit silly and a bit misplaced. So black tries to capitalize on this with knight b4. Okay. So what should white play here? So should white mind that black is threatening to take the bishop, or should he just not care? So yeah, the answer is he shouldn't care. He should just castle. Okay. So what would happen if black takes? How does white recapture? Right. So if black captures, you capture with the pawn. And notice this pawn controls these two squares, and you get this open c-file. So notice that black is wasting 2 moves just to capture a bishop. And in those 2 moves, we're getting a healthy pawn center, even with the doubled pawns, and we're castling. So notice what kind of lead and development we have here. So again, no need to worry about this knight takes d3. There's a reason why knight b4 isn't good here. And the reason is this loss of tempo is going to cost black. Okay. Let's see what white did. Okay, so white played knight e5. Also kind of a bit of an odd move. This is called a Chigrin variation in a queen pawn opening. It's basically just like a queen pawn opening. But yeah, again, he should have castled because I'm not sure why he's developing this knight twice. I don't really know why. I guess he wanted to take back with a knight, I guess. But again, he should take back with a pawn here. Okay, so g6. Castle. Bishop g7, bishop d2, and take d3. Okay, so again, how should white recapture this? Pawn or knight? Right. So again, he should capture with the pawn. Again, controlling these 2 squares, half open c-file, put pressure on this pawn. But of course, white did play knight e5 to capture with the knight. And so he did. But again, don't be afraid of double pawns, especially when they control key squares. Okay, so he took with the knight. Bishop f5. Queen e2, castle. Knight c3, bishop g4, f3. Okay. So what should white play here? So e4 looks natural, but does it work tactically? Does e4 work tactically? So the answer is that it does. Right. So it doesn't drop the d4 pawn because after e4, why is it fine? Why is it fine? Right. So if take, queen takes d4 check. Now notice after bishop e3, we're attacking the queen and the bishop. And he can't save both. So we win a piece. So e4 is correct. Because notice how all of white's pieces are kind of geared for e4. This pawn, this knight, this queen. So e4 is definitely the right move. Because again, black cannot take on d4. Okay. So that's a little tactical point, but... Okay, so white plays move b4. So what's wrong with this move? Like, why is this move not good? Well, if you're in doubt yourself when I ask, how do you think it's going to feel when you're actually playing a chess game? Yeah, so first of all, there's really no justification for white to kind of start pushing his queenside pawns. But notice it creates a big hole on this square. So, I mean, black, if he wanted to, could just basically do something like this and plant a knight there, and it would probably be pretty good. Yeah, it's kind of a random move. It doesn't really fit with how white's pieces are set up, if you notice. Like I said, his pieces are kind of set up for an e4 push. Because one of the things is this pawn is kind of hampering this bishop. So there's no reason that you wouldn't want to push this pawn forward. Right. So b4 is just kind of like a, you know, a move that you kind of make if you don't know what else to do. Okay. So b4, b6. Okay. So what do you guys think about this move? You think b6 is a good move? Bad move? Yeah, so this move, again, doesn't do anything for black and makes a weak square on c6. Yeah, so both these guys really have no idea what they're doing. But is that clear to the rest of you is the question. Like, do you guys see why these moves make no sense? Like, it should be crystal clear obvious that these moves are terrible. Okay. Just want to make sure. Because these are types of moves that happen all the time in these types of games. And yeah, this is a real game. This is absolutely a real game. And this is not uncommon either. So I want to make sure that at least you guys who are watching know that this is not something you guys should be playing. Yeah, exactly. Fighting for the center. Okay. So a4, okay, at least he's being consistent. I have to give him credit for that. At least he's being consistent. Not necessarily good, but at least he's being consistent. Okay, so black takes on d3. And here actually, c takes d3 is fine, but also queen takes d3 is okay. Because notice that this pawn structure means that the light squares are now weak. So by taking with the queen, he's kind of able to infiltrate. Maybe get his queen to a6, something, knight b5, play c4. Because if he can play c4, you know, and get rid of the d pawn in order to open the c file, it's not so bad. But either capture is actually fine. Either capture is fine. But again, c takes d3 would not be bad because again, we're opening the c file. And notice that this pawn is more of a weakness now. Because again, c6 is much harder to play because it's just on a square that's not defended. Okay, but he took with the queen, which, you know, is more natural, and again, is fine. Okay, queen d6. Okay, so what should white play here? Yeah, okay, so first of all, notice that this is not a threat, okay? So black is actually not even threatening to take that pawn. And why is that the case? So why is that not even a threat? Right, because we can move this knight for discovery. Oops. So I'll just play a nothing move. Yeah, so we can move this knight for discovery, hitting the queen. And notice that this pawn on b4 is worth less than this pawn on d5. This pawn on d5 is really the crux of black's position. If it goes, his game goes. So right, the correct move would be to play e4. Again, similar idea as what we showed a few moves ago. The idea is you want to play e5 and really just develop a vice grip in the center. Yeah, actually maybe do trap with knight b5, to be honest. I didn't think of that, but you might be right actually. Yeah, this might just trap his queen. Yeah, you guys are right. Yeah, so he has to play something like queen b2 because his queen can't go backwards this way. Yeah, oh, I guess you can play queen c4. Okay, so it doesn't quite trap the queen. Yeah, I mean you can take on c4 or play knight c7, whatever. But I think knight d5 is just as good too. Okay, so no, knight b5 doesn't trap the queen. But in any case, you don't have to defend this pawn is the point. Okay, but he played knight b5, which is okay, but e4 would have been stronger. Queen d7, c4, a6. Okay, now he moves his knight back, I believe. If ICC stops lagging. Okay. Okay. So now, you know, white has more space on the queen side. But more space doesn't necessarily guarantee an advantage. So what should white do here? And why? Okay, so this is the point where you need to think about what you want to do, what targets you can create. So do you guys see a potential target in black's position here? D5. Yeah, very good. Very good. So it's hidden at the moment. It's hidden at the moment, but the target is actually this guy. Yeah, very good. So how do we get at it? Well, we got to clear this line. So take. Whoops, take. Now I move like rook fc1. So notice if you take on a6, for example, what does black have here that's somewhat dangerous? Well, black has this very strong reply e5. And the point is this pawn is pinned because of this bishop. So black wins his pawn back by force. So you have to be careful that you don't allow black counterplay, because then this bishop becomes a monster. Yeah, I guess also bishop takes d4 would work too. But then I think you can play queen d3. So you have to be careful, Ray. You have to be careful. Don't get out-tacticked. I think e5 is stronger than bishop takes d4, because queen d3 I think just wins the piece. But okay, so that's not what white did though. Okay, he played a5. Okay, so what should black play here? White's kind of trying to storm him on the queen side. What should black play here? I'll flip it for you guys. So what should black play here? So black's weaker on the queen side, obviously, because none of his pieces are on the queen side, and white has more space there. So in general, if that's the case, you want to try to lock it up. So he actually has a way to do that with take and b5. And now when the queen moves somewhere, say d3, e2 someplace, b3, whatever, doesn't matter. Now you have this move e5. So whenever you're weak on the wing, you want to strike back in the center. And here black has a fine game. White's pieces are kind of silly. And the fact that all these pawns are on dark means what? Means they're targets for this guy and weaknesses for this guy. Yeah. So you want to make sure you capture first. And then after b5, you kind of lock it up and make all his pawns targets. So black had a good opportunity there. But of course, played b5 first, which unfortunately just hangs a pawn, because we have how many attackers? 1, 2, 3. Black has how many defenders? 1, 2. So simple counting. 3 is bigger than 2, last I checked. So take, and rook b8. Okay. So what is white's real strong point in this position? What makes white have such an advantage in this position? I mean, yes, he's up a pawn, but what's really white's key reason why he's much better here? Yeah. So this pawn is a passer. Not only is it a passer, it's a protected passer, Not only is it a passer, it's a protected outside passer. Not only is it a protected outside passer, it also has a rook behind it. And it's also fast. Like, it's only 3 moves from queening. So it really has everything going for it. So yeah, you basically just want to try to get this pawn as far advanced as possible and infiltrate on the c file and win the game. Yeah, it's pretty much over. So take. Knight takes d5. Okay, pretty much GG, right? I mean, this is also good, winning a second pawn. Forking these two, winning a third pawn. I mean, this pawn's going to go to a6, a7. It's pretty much over, right? Game over? Patzer's Playground? Or is it? Or is it? Okay, bishop f6. Defend stuff. You know, okay, whatever. Okay, took a third pawn. Alright, I mean, it wasn't even necessary, but sure. There's no reason not to. e5. Okay, so how many pawns are we up now? Let's count. Let's just double check. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If ICC stops lagging, they'll be counted. Okay, and black has 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, up 3 pawns. That's a lot of pawns. It's a piece's worth of pawns. Okay. So when we're up 3 pawns, we should basically try to trade pieces, you know, make things simpler. So what move here makes things simpler? What move here makes things simpler? I mean, there are a lot of good choices, to be honest. There are a lot of good choices, to be honest. So the one move that doesn't make things simpler is this. Because after this, look what's happening. Look what's happening, guys. You're not making things simpler. You're making things more complicated. I'm not saying this is anything to fear. I'm just saying you're making things more complicated. Yes, you have rook c1. Yes, you can defend the knight. I'm just saying things are more complicated. I mean, it's fine. I'm just letting you know it's not simpler. So what's simple? You attack my pawn. I move my pawn. Just d5. Okay, now how many passed pawns do we have? How many passed pawns do we have? Well, we got 1, we got 2, we got 3. That's good. Three passed pawns are good. And what if black plays a move like e4? What do we do here? So he's trying to take our rook or something. Something nasty. What do we do here? Yeah, I mean, you could take this, sure, it's fine. But again, simpler. So just rook a2. Just defend the rook. No worries. If he takes, you just take back with the pawn. Again, you're gonna play e4, have this nice pawn chain, have this pawn chain, promote, everything promotes. It's fine. Again, simple. All your moves do win, but simple. Because the more complicated things get, the more chances things can go wrong. And as you might have guessed, things go wrong. Things go really wrong. Okay, bishop c3 is fine. But notice things aren't simple now. So what's undefended now? What is white left undefended? Well, all of a sudden, all his pieces are undefended. This is undefended. This is undefended. This is attacked. I don't like this anymore. It's not so simple. Yeah, e3 is undefended. Just stuff is undefended. So again, this is fine, but not simple. Okay, so pawn takes. By the way, if rook fc, I just noticed that, you know, knight d5 covers everything. You're attacking this bishop and defending this, so it's fine, but okay. So black actually took. So the question is which way to capture back. And there is a difference. There is a difference. And be careful now. I will be, Mocking Quail, I will be. Absolutely. Yeah, so this is tricky. This is tricky. Because, you know, if you take with the bishop, you drop this pawn. But if you take with the pawn, what happens? Well, it gets tricky. So taking with the pawn is what, of course, happened, but it's not the right move. You actually want to take with the bishop. So why is this correct? Well, I'll show you why it's correct in a second. But if you guys are worried about losing this b pawn, well, we do lose the b pawn, but it doesn't matter. So if he takes, takes, okay. The problem is we just play a6, and then a7, a8, really hard to stop. If knight b6, for example, we can play rook fb1 and force a rook trade, and this is just hopeless because again, a7, a8, real fast. Okay, so why is this pawn takes? It seems more natural because we're not hanging our b pawn. So why is this a problem? Does anyone see what potentially could be a miss here? Well, all of a sudden, all of our pieces are on dark squares, and tactics are about to happen. So do you guys see what tactic is brewing? So now all of a sudden it does matter that these guys are on unprotected squares, because after rook c8, knight d5, now what? Now what? Now we got forks and pins. So we capture here, capture here, capture here.
Check.
King moves, capture here. And all of a sudden, what was once simple is no longer close to being simple. Okay. To tell the truth, white is still winning here. But, again, this is not as simple as it was 5 moves ago. Not even close. But this again, is still winning for white. Okay, fine. It gets worse. Because black missed this opportunity and played rook b5. So of course now we're fine. We're happy. We're winning. We're dead win. We just take on f6, move the bishop, queen the pawn. Pretty simple, right? Because I mean, okay, this is attacked, but we can, you know, take a piece with check, move our bishop. We're fine, right? No problems. Thanks, black, for not making it complicated. Well, we played rook b1. And now, unfortunately, the age-old maxim, rooks move sideways, comes to bite us. Because rooks move sideways, and now we're lost. Now we're lost. Again, queens moving sideways, we can handle. Rooks moving sideways, that is too much. It's too much. So now all of a sudden we're lost. Now, it wasn't a time thing. It was not a time thing. Just sometimes you just don't notice things. I don't think he noticed the point of rook b5. Okay, so we're worse. But we do have some trump cards. We do have trump cards. We do have pawns. So, again, all hope is not lost, but we have to be super careful. We have to be super careful. Because this pawn is hanging, and if we make a move like rook a3, well, that doesn't do anything, actually, right? Because simply rook takes c3 just wins. Take, and then bishop d4. We just drop more pieces. All right. So he plays b5. Well, I guess if we didn't know that rooks moved sideways, we probably wouldn't know that rooks moved vertically. So, yeah. So he thought these pawns might be worth more than this bishop, but they're definitely not, because these pawns can be blockaded, especially with 2 pieces up. So, oh boy, here we go.
Check.
Okay. I have no idea why he didn't just take this. I think he forgot that he could like take this and then just like take twice here if he had to and then just like win. I have no idea what he thought.
Check.
But okay, he took on d4 for some unknown reason, and now all of a sudden we're better again. Thanks, black. Because now these 2 pawns are worth at least this knight. Because our rooks are in the perfect position behind them. Okay, so of course we take. Okay. So this is a bit of technique now, actually, because white actually should be better with these pawns on the 5th. If black could trade this knight for these 2 pawns, it's a complete draw, though, right? Because it's rook and 3 pawns, just dead draw. So the question is, how do we kind of avoid or try to restrict black from being able to trade this knight for those 2 pawns? So what should white do here? So this is tricky. This is very tricky. Right, you don't want to let the knight blockade the pawns. So how do we avoid that? So actually the best move in this position is not to push either pawn. And what's the reason? Well, the reason is you guys are forgetting about something. b6, don't forget I have this. b7, I have this. And now all of a sudden, you're fighting for a draw, not me. So b6 is actually not the right move. Don't forget, black has other things he can do. So you actually want to exchange a pair of rooks off first. And the only way to do that is to play rook d1. Now you force an exchange of rooks because there's a knight behind it. And now you don't have to worry about 7th rank issues. And now these pawns can start pushing. But rook d1 is a very important finesse, because you play b6, after rook d2, suddenly you're fighting for a draw. So, careful. Careful. Okay. So what did white do? White played a6. Well, okay. You guys already said why this was no good. It's because the knight can block. Yeah. So again, you want to keep these pawns together unless you can push and not have the knight block. So b6 was the better way to push, but this is just not good. Okay, so now this is even worse because now this pawn is no longer friends with this guy. So now black can basically just surround this pawn. So he should have kept the pawn on a6 and had it defended by his friend on b5. Yeah. But okay. Rook a4. Okay. So now what should white do here? Well, now again, white's completely winning. Because all he has to do is just take and play b6. And GG. Yeah, game over. Yeah, I have no idea why black offered a trade of rooks. Not a clue. So game over. Not really. Because he played king f2. And now, actually, white's lost. White is dead lost. Does someone know what black can do to win here? So black has a cute maneuver here, which is rook check,
check,
rook check, and rook a3. And now it's over, because this pawn's going to fall. This pawn's blockaded, just run the king over, and it's over. So you play rook c3 check to give the king, force the king back a rank. Just a little cute finesse. But okay, I mean, black's not going to see that in a million years. Okay, so he played rook a8. And now, of course, it's drawn again, because after take, b6, take, it's a draw. Okay, so let's see what happened. Well, that's exactly what happened. Take. Okay. Hold on a second. Okay, so this position surely is a draw, right? I mean, 3-on-3, FGH, rook. I mean, even if you were stone dead, you couldn't possibly lose this game, right? I mean, even the greatest mongooses couldn't lose this game, right? I mean, there's no way. No, there's no way. I mean, literally there's no way. Well, let's see.
check,
Okay, so check. I don't know why he did that. Again, it doesn't really matter. Okay, king e3. I don't know why he did that at all. Because now he's losing. Rook a2 wins a pawn. Rook a2 loses a pawn. And now he's losing. So white's dead lost. What's king e3? What is king e3? I don't know. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's without explanation. Okay, h5. I don't know why that. Why not just win the game? I don't know. Oops. Sorry, I gave something away.
check,
Let's go back. Okay, h3. Okay, at least he got his pawn off the back rank. Okay, g4. Okay, check.
check,
Okay, check.
check,
Okay, check. Okay, this is still just drawn. Oops. Okay. So he should actually keep his king tethered to this pawn. White's pawn structure, notice, is worse because he has to take care of two pawns. This one and this one. Black only has to take care of about this one on f6. But if white keeps his king on g2, it should be a draw.
check,
Okay, so check. Uh-oh. Now this is actually lost again. Okay, I don't know why he did that. He should have played something like rook a7, and then rook a3, and then tried to get his king to f4, then played rook a2, something like that. Okay. So now black wins. Rook b7, rook b2, rook h2, and rook h3. Nothing else, nothing white can do. So this is just lost. Okay, of course he's not going to see it. And now, okay. Well, now white wins, right? And finally, no more back and forth. White wins. Black just hung all his pawns. So take,
check,
and then rook trade to seal the deal.
check.
And GG. Yeah. And white won. Well, there you go. I don't know how to describe that game, but I guess it was a just result.